Okay, this is Dr. Garcia again, and this is Quantum Truth number 2. We have, Western culture has been led astray by people that we thought knew what they were talking about. And unfortunately, this has been going on for thousands of years, and it has led mankind, us, into an untenable position. We are on the verge of extinction, and we are prevented from doing the right things by the moneyed interests. Isn't that amazing? We have information that could help us prevent this extinction that we're looking at if we followed it. Okay. First of all, we were led astray by, I mentioned it in my other lecture, that the conference at Nicosia in 325, which codified the Christian religion according to Roman desires to solidify and connect their empire utilizing Christianity. And in so doing, it left out many of the important concepts of Jesus' teaching that are all to be found in the Gospel according to Thomas. Because the Gospels that were left out of the Bible were actually some of the most important concepts. And the good news is the Gospel according to Thomas are exact quotations from Jesus. And in these quotations, Jesus says, if you understand these quotations, you will not die. And his whole message, Jesus' whole message, was quantum physics that was left out of Christianity because it was very difficult to understand, and they didn't want to have any confusion. They wanted Christianity to be codified, and so in so doing, they left out some of the most important parts of Christianity that can be found today, exactly as Jesus described them in his Gospel according to Thomas. Those are exact quotes from Jesus. Now, there were other sages, Buddha, Krishna, Aristotle, Lao Tse, that also understood quantum physics. And because they understood quantum physics, that's why they became revered throughout history and throughout the world. And so, what I am trying to do is bring the understanding of quantum physics into modern day thought. Okay, here are some of the mistakes that we've made throughout the past. Okay, well, we gave Freud a great prominence in psychotherapy, but his whole concept of mental disease was based on repression of aggressive tendencies, and he believed that there was aggression and there was competition. That was Freud, and a lot of our mental disease is due to suppression of these aggressive feelings. But then we have Maslow, who was one of the great psychotherapists of the 20th century, and he believes that man is not basically aggressive and competitive, but is more nurturing, and more his whole being is that of cooperation with other humans to solve big problems. And in fact, if you look at human history, we've been through many extinctions, and only through cooperation were we able to survive. And all you have to do is look at the ants, the bees, and animal populations, how they cooperate to survive. And that's who we are. So that was Freud and Maslow, and then we have Darwin, whose Origin of the Species set up this whole concept that, you know, only the strong survive. This was Darwin, and that we evolved through random mutations. And well, number one, we now know that that theory is absolutely wrong. We evolve and our DNA changes through environmental pressures. And probably the most important reason why it's so important is we have control over it, is our mental negativity and stress creating pressures on our genome, our DNA expression, which causes the number one cause of disease and unhappiness is mental stress. And that's all self-induced. It can be alleviated. And I've done a series of mental healing lectures on how you can alleviate yourself from mental stress by getting into the alpha state of being. And so the alpha state of being is being rather than talking to yourself about future problems that never happen. That's man's dilemma. See, we evolved not to be happy, but to survive. And because of this survival, constant survival impetus in our body, we're constantly afraid. We have fear. And that fear is what drives mental illness and physical problems. So that has to be addressed. The best way to address false thinking is to change our thinking. Our problems today are not insurmountable. There are answers to all the problems of society and of world, the problems of low energy, increased population, pollution, climate change, etc. There are answers, but we're prevented from utilizing present knowledge to address critical problems in our society because the money interests won't allow us to do the right things. And that goes for the coal industry, the coal industry, the petroleum industry. All these are all people protecting their turf. And also that goes for GMOs. When you are producing new food sources, the body responds to that by chronic inflammation, which is the major cause of all disease. Heart disease, cancer, aging, Alzheimer's, diabetes, chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation, a major aspect of that is our diet. And the diet that I've been talking about for 20, 25 years has now just been proven at UCLA in the Buck Institute in a recent publication that my whole concept about fasting, meditation, no sugar, no bread, no processed foods, and then the exercise and the meditation are all included in the Buck Institute's most recent research, and it proves that what I've been saying for 20, 25 years is correct. Okay, other teachers that led us astray. We talked about Darwin, where that we do not change by natural selection, we change by environmental pressures. And that was, and also Darwin, whole philosophy was a survival of the fittest, and the strongest will survive and have more children, the weakest will die. But when we look at over 400 published articles tell us exactly the different approach. Mankind is more about nurture rather than competition. and that's not only mankind, but it's in all the other species. The bees, the ants, they all cooperate. It's cooperation and unity rather than separation and the lone wolf. But we've been taught that the strong survive. And what we're being taught by most recent research, instead of struggle, we were meant to snuggle. We were meant to work together. And indeed, as I look across our problems for society and in the world as a whole, we have to start working together. Because the problem is that everybody will become aggressive when they protect their lifestyle. And when you have a planet that's shrinking in resources, we're going to have more and more wars, and that's what we're seeing. So we have to solve our problem of decreasing food, energy, and water, and pollution of our planet. We have to solve these problems or start working on them almost immediately. Otherwise, we are going to have another extinction. And that's not even talking about the precarious position that the world financial condition is in. We're at peak debt, and once the currencies of the major economies starts to devalue, then we will have a recession, probably a depression, the likes of which we've never seen before. And the two economies that make up the bulk of the reserve currency are the euro and the United States. And both economies are in trouble depending on who you talk to. How much more time do I have?
4 minutes.
Okay, 4 now. Okay, so we have the way we've been sent along the wrong path by people we believe in. We talked about Freud, and we talked about Darwin and his evolutionary concepts proven to be totally wrong. We evolved through environmental pressure. And then we also had the germ theory. Well, in 1926, penicillin was discovered, and it wasn't utilized in healing patients until 1946, 20 years later. And that was the biggest discovery of the 20th century. It took them 20 years to utilize it. That's why I am taking my ideas of quantum healing, quantum reality creation, and quantum truth, so that we can immediately utilize this information in our health and healing of ourselves and the planet. So we talked about the germ theory came about because of penicillin's incredible treatment of a bacterial disease. Well, the germ theory then all of a sudden, because it was so successful, now everything became amenable, was a germ. Disease was a germ, either a virus or a bacteria. Well, that's patently untrue. Disease is caused by many, many things, most of them lifestyle that can be changed. Chronic inflammation, food, sugar, bread, dairy, and also negative mental thinking is also a major source of chronic inflammation. So all my programs deal with those exact problems. Quantum healing, quantum reality creation, and quantum thought, or actually the alpha state. So then we have the germ theory, and what the germ theorists fail to realize is that before the germ theory and penicillin, when a doctor didn't know what to do with his patients, he would send them to the countryside, have them at a sanitarium, eat natural foods, and lay in the sun. And most of them got well. Modern medicine forgot that. Well, that's a good way to start. Sun is very, very important for health and healing. Hippocrates said that the sun is necessary for mental as well as physical healing. Chandra, which was the Indian Hippocrates, he said all healing can be improved with sunshine. Well, we know since 1987, O. Becker, that we heal through electromagnetic information. Well, the sun is the only source of all the frequencies of electromagnetic information, absolutely necessary for healing physically and most importantly, emotionally. Sunshine will prevent depression and also one more.
That's about it for this one. It's over.
Okay, can we one more and then I'm done.